welcome everyone to our session today. 3 to 4:30, we have our interpreters available. We have a fairly large group of participants joining. We will be posting some links and slides in the chat for you, but we really encourage you to ask questions and post your comments in the chat as well. That always helps us as we go. Um, in the chat, you will also see a link to the slides. Those slides will be available to you during the session, after the session. Those are Google Slides. If you have your phone, you can also scan the QR code. Sometimes it's a bit easier to use it that way as well. Now, to give you a quick overview of what we will be doing today is really kind of introductions and housekeeping for the first 10 minutes or so. Then we will spend as much time as possible on the presentation and chatting with our guests, and then Q&A and a wrap up. But really just to clarify, after each guest presenter, there will be time to ask questions. So you will be able to ask those questions during the session. You don't have to wait until the end of the session to ask questions. Of course, before we start, we need to do a bit of land acknowledgement. So I'm just going to read out something and be very mindful of our interpreters just to make sure we follow as well. We would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. Thank you. So, we are talking about financial literacy and we're looking at the Get Set environment. So, I thought I will put a bit of context into why we are doing this session today. And when I looked up the definition for financial literacy, this is from Government of Canada website. Financial literacy is having the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make responsible financial decisions. But there's so many things happening now. The things are progressing very quickly. Our digital world is changing and affecting us as well. And in many ways, it's changing the way we use, we budget, we spend money, we plan for money, the way we handle bills. All that is changing as well, which is kind of putting a pressure on our programs to support our learners with financial literacy as well. And I just wanted to mention that recently I traveled to a conference in Timmins, and there's a lot of minds there. We were discussing what the programs are doing and what kind of clients are they are getting. And one of the instructors noticed that they're getting a lot of men coming into the program because their wives passed away and they don't know how to manage their household and their finances. Most of the time, the husbands were in mines working, and now that the wives passed away, because of all the online banking, the apps, and so on, and even the switch or navigation through the bereavement and how to navigate and use some of the bills and the applications and tools, they just don't know how to do. They need help. And it was something that sometimes really stuck with me because we don't think about stuff like that. We very often go to school, we kind of learn to budget and so on, but we don't really think what life changes can do and how they can impact us when it comes to financial literacy. So that's the topic. That's why we kind of chose this for today, but also the chat with some of the programs we work with. So you will see our guest presenters. Many of them we know we meet through different services and supports. And they mentioned to us that they were doing financial literacy training. That's why we invited them to our session today. So just to introduce who they are, they will tell us about themselves when they actually will be presenting today. But I wanted to welcome and tell you about Jennifer Ellis, who is the Executive Director at the Gateway Center for Learning. Janet Ogden, former project manager at the Niagara West Adult Learning Center, and Audrey Gardner, who is project coordinator at Forthright Learning Services. So today we also have me, Monica, and Tracy from AlphaPlus, and our interpreters, Jason and Dean, who are supporting us during the session. Now, Before we jump in, I just wanted to give you the background of what did we ask our guest presenters to talk about. And if you joined our sessions before, you will see that we usually allow each guest to speak through the whole thing. So they know the questions, they prepare the presentation for you, and then we will have the Q&A and move to the next guest presenter. So just to tell you what we ask, what are we sharing and asking them to share with us, is we ask them to tell us about themselves and also tell us about the financial literacy program they developed. How did it come about? Why did they set it up? Who was it for? Also, some outlines and examples, if possible, and how are those programs different from other programs that they may have come across before? And also, what surprised them when they were delivering this program. Finally, we also hope that they will share with us advice, tools, tips, resources, something that we can walk away with, something we can learn from them as well. So those were some of the questions we were asking. And the very first one will be Jennifer from Gateway Center for Learning.
Hi, good
Jennifer, are we
afternoon.
ready?
Yeah. Is my volume okay?
Yes,
Okay.
it's perfect. And then just
Okay.
give me one
My
second.
family affectionately, I'm sure, refers to me as Miss Loudness. So um, it's even worse on a microphone. So, yep, next slide. Awesome. So, yeah, I'm Jen Ellis. I'm the executive director of Gateway Center for Learning. I'm also a literacy practitioner, and I developed and facilitated the financial literacy workshop that I'll be talking about today. Gateway Center for Learning is a nonprofit charity. We're located on the southeastern shore of Georgian Bay, known as the beautiful 30,000 Islands region. We are a community-based Anglophone Get Set program. We deliver that program through one-on-one tutoring, small groups, and supported independent learning. We need to secure complementary funding to sustain the ministry program through a variety of ways. We do that by doing grant applications. We operate a used bookstore called Bookmark. We offer proctoring services for a fee, and we do quite a bit of technology coaching for seniors. Some of that, the one-on-one, modeling our mission, is for free, but we do charge a fee for our small group workshops, on-site at home support. We meet clients at stores, help them purchase devices, and we offer some tech support in terms of transferring data from one device to another. So that's about me and Gateway. Next slide. And our financial literacy program was called Everyday Money for Women. It came about because an opportunity emerged through funding, always watching granting availability. This one was through United Way, Simcoe Muskoka, and a Women United Fund. They identified literacy and financial literacy programming specifically as a priority area of support. And of course, they did want to support women and children. For us, a lot of times when we've offered financial literacy programs, we haven't had much uptake on it. We thought we'd try again and really try to be attractive to women in that they tend to be, and Monica was saying this in her opening monologue there, that they tend to be the ones who are responsible for the household income, the household expenses. So we thought we'd try again. So there was a funding opportunity. We felt that there was a need. We always like to do these things and not just offer it to our Get Set people, but to the general public as a potential recruitment to Get Set. Sometimes if we can get somebody in our doors for a more emergent need or interest, they're more likely to then register in our Get Set program. It also increased our visibility in the community, and it just aligned with our mission. So it was designed for women. I put a question mark there because we had 2 women register, and then a gentleman was standing in our foyer holding the brochure, and he said, I would join this, but it's for women. And we said, you can join this, and he did. So again, the curriculum was kind of designed for primary household financial decision makers and people experiencing financial stress. Some of the design considerations we took into effect or considered was accessibility. We wanted to use really plain language, have lots of visual supports, minimal jargon, and very low pressure activities. We also took into consideration emotional safety, as money can be very emotional and triggering. Many participants carried shame or fear around their finances. And we emphasized no judgment, no math skills needed. And we really, you're going to hear me say this repeatedly, there was a lot of discussion. We wanted some real life relevance, so everyday examples, budgeting on limited income, banking basics, scams and fraud awareness, benefits and deductions, and talking about money with family. Most of the participants had never talked about money with anybody else. And flexibility. So again, discussion-based learning, adaptable pacing, and respect for lived experiences. Next slide. Thank you. So our workshop topics, and I will say we did use the Money Matters, but we did not print out one single workbook. We did not have any slide sets going on. We used that stuff to direct discussion, to help guide our discussions. So our topics were creating a simple spending plan. The participants loved that wording as opposed to budget. It is a budget. They knew it was a budget, but they really liked the wording spending plan. It just sounds so much more fun, doesn't it? Banking with confidence, managing debt, finding ways to save, shopping smarter, understanding income benefits and deductions, recognizing scams, identity theft, bogus job ads, all that kind of thing, knowing where to get some financial help. We're in a small town. There is some help locally, but more than likely you're going to have to go to Barrie, which is minimum 45-minute one-way drive. So that was interesting conversations around that, talking about money with your children, with your spouses, with other family members, and why file your income taxes. So what made a real difference for us? Again, I'm back to the discussion. Conversation first, worksheets second, if at all. I didn't print out one handbook. Everybody was given a notepad. I did take notes. So there was one display board. It was Microsoft Word, as I did jot notes, but they all had a notebook that they kept their own notes in. And as they supplied tips and tricks and experiences, they would say to me, put that down, write that down. So that was kind of fun. So the participants really learned from each other, and it was really focused on real life situations. Some of the surprises, many of the participants had never talked about money with friends, family, children, and they began doing so during and after the workshop. So that was really interesting. One participant came in and said that she had spoke to her 5-year-old son about money, and they were out somewhere else. And he said, Mom, is that a need or a want? So maybe a little cheeky, but coming along, right? The gentleman in the program living with his parents and started talking about money with them and filing income tax and things like that. Never had discussed money with his family before. We had really high sustained engagement across the entire group. They were really engaged. They were brave and sharing their life experiences, sharing things they had tried, things that they'd got caught up in, not necessarily ripped off, but things that cost them extra money, where they had borrowed money, things like that. So the other thing that made a big difference that we offered, that there was some one-on-one sessions offered after the workshop, during the end of the workshop and after it finished. And there was a very, very strong uptake on that optional support. And for example, one of the learners booked a one-on-one with me, and I helped her make a list of questions. The bank in Penetanguishene had closed. So now she needed to get the bus to come to Midland to do her banking. There is another bank in Penetanguishene, but it wasn't the TD Bank, or Scotia Bank, whatever it was. So she wanted to open a bank account in Penetanguishene. So we made a list of questions for her to ask at her meeting. That's so cool. Things like that. Okay, next slide. The resources, so I'd already mentioned that we did use Money Matters, but to guide our discussion. So I didn't actually put it on there because, like I said, I didn't print or show one slide from that. One of the things they really enjoyed was we used Jeopardy as a daily review and warm up. So that it didn't go on and on and on. We did split them into groups. So there was two groups and they got to name themselves and there was points and we kept track of the points and the categories would be from the day before. And they really, really loved that. And I found that that was an easy warm-up tool to use. You can customize it so you don't have to have 5 categories and 5 questions. You can have 3 categories and 3 questions, whatever the timing works for you in your workshop. And I don't know if you are familiar with, I received a copy of this through the Simcoe Muskoka Skill Force, but it's a 20-point budget activity. And we did this as our very first warm up. And what it is it's a spreadsheet, and you go in and you are a family of 4, a husband, wife, and 2 children, one school aged, one in daycare, and you are mostly looking after one senior parent. And you get 20 points, and you have to decide how to spend it over things like food and daycare and car and what kind of care for the grandparent. And then something comes up. So the car gets a bunch of problems and it needs $500. So now you have to adjust your spending. So we did this as the introductory budget activity. And it really brought the group together in terms of understanding the different backgrounds we come from and the choices and decisions that we make on low income. So, was mom going to drop the kids off at daycare and take the bus to work? Is she going to do all that by bus, or can they afford at least one vehicle? Things like that. So if you don't have this activity, you can reach out to me and I'll send you a copy of it. It's a Google spreadsheet and it's just amazing. So that just really brought the group together and it was a real good sensitivity activity. Tips from me, I say keep it practical. Use everyday examples, real life receipts, bills, pay stubs. We logged into their actual banking apps, which most of them had done before. So they knew what their bank balance was. But after we talked about wants and needs, they were like, oh, look at that. There's a tab in my app. It says wants and needs. So they were surprised to find those kinds of things. We had them collecting their receipts so that they would have a visual pile of things that they were spending money on. Avoiding jargon, absolutely. And because this was so conversation and discussion based, that was easy to do because they led the wording, because they were sharing. So lots of group discussion, focusing on immediate relevance. So being flexible. I mean, if we didn't want to spend too much time on taxes, we didn't. We switched that to one-on-one time. So following their interests and their concerns. So again, those one-on-one follow-up supports help prepare for meetings with banks or debitors. So calling your debtor. Our inclination is to ignore them, right? Not take those calls, not talk to them. And most of them do want to be repaid and they will work with you. So I said, talk to them. They'll find a payment plan for you. Reviewing things like Microsoft OneDrive and Google Drive storage, as well as other apps and games that, people had games that they were paying $1.54 a month for, but they hadn't played in 2 years. They just didn't know how to cancel it. And when you're living off of Ontario Works, this all adds up. So just helping them reduce some monthly payments there. Reviewing shopping apps, rewards, points, and offers. They're not always to our benefit, but they can be. And so using those. Filing income tax, and one of the good reasons for that was to apply for your Canada Dental Plan or renew your Canada Dental Plan. Applying for your dental plan is no big deal. Renewing it is a huge ordeal because you have to set up a Service Canada account. So just helping them navigate things like that. I think that's the end of my slides.
Yeah, that's amazing, Jennifer. Wow, and good timing.
Oh, was I on time? Because when I did it earlier, I was all of 7 minutes. I talked really fast.
Well, what the one thing that and your one-on-one follow-up supports, like you're pointing out a lot of things that those were discussions and conversations, but a lot of tools that are you're looking at are digital tools, mobile apps, online banking, filing taxes online, and so on, and even the shopping apps that you were mentioning. So that connection between, just doing things on paper and now shifting or aligning and learning the different digital applications and tools, that takes, time and resources as well. Many of us are scared of those and don't even use them. So the
Yeah.
way you were able to combine or how the participants brought that to the table in those conversations, that's amazing. That's
Yeah, and
amazing.
they had apps and experiences to share. So that was, I mean, it's just such a bonus when somebody says, I tried 3 apps, like coupon apps. This is the only one that worked. Great. I don't have to download the other two. I'm just going straight to Flip
Yeah,
because you say it works. So yeah, that was great.
amazing. So one of the questions we have in the chat is how long is your program or how long was
Yeah.
that program?
Not long enough. We ran it for 2 weeks. We ran Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10 till 3. So about total of about 24 hours. There was another about, I would say 15 to 20 hours of, well, 15 hours of one-on-ones.
Hmm. Hmm.
United Way, this was not a hugely funded program. This was $4,000. So not a lot of money. So 2 weeks, it was 24 hours. They all would have come back for easily another week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And then I'm putting in the questions, and if there's anyone who wants to add more questions, or if you want to unmute or sign, if that's a bit easier, please let me know, or just turn on your videos, and we can go from there. There's a comment from Tammy. Just for FYI, you can apply for CDCP without my Service Canada account. They just don't make the link easy to find. Yeah,
Yes,
because
I
there's
have
a
heard that
form
too.
now. There's a form now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. I
it's
have.
learning, right? We're all learning. So things change over time. And my parents are seniors and I'm learning that, there's forms I can apply for some grants and supports, but you have to know where to go and they change from year
Mhm.
to year. Requirements change from year to year as well. So being able to have those conversations and learn from each other, that's huge. And I
Mhm.
love, Jennifer, how you brought real life examples of how that actually was happening, what people were asking for, the
It
reality of
was
it.
emotionally moving. I could not believe how brave and forthcoming these people were in sharing with each other. I think that sensitivity activity in the beginning set the tone, but it was moving.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
really was.
Wow.
One of the participants had gone to a money place to get a loan to pay off her things, and she was paying now like 300% interest.
Wow. Wow.
The others just about fell off their chairs until they started looking at some of the interest they were paying on unpaid bills and things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we connected her with another place. But if you go to Money Mart, sure, they'll cash a check for you. And then right off the bat, they are on you to try and get you to use some of their other services. And money borrowing is one, and it's like 300% interest.
Hmm.
They didn't have any idea how interest worked.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
in this group had any idea how interest worked. Um,
There's a question, will the copy of the budget activity be available?
a copy of the
Budget activity.
Oh, I probably can't navigate that right this second, but I can send it to you, Monica,
Yes.
and you can include it when you send out your wrap up
Perfect.
to this.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
fantastic. And then
Okay.
my question
And
about
then
the
also I'll include my contact information. It took me a few times to navigate that tool properly. Feel free. I'd be happy to do a quick Zoom with you and go through that tool. The
fantastic.
instructions are there, but it's always nice when somebody just goes click there, click there.
And thinking of the technical or the Jeopardy you were playing, what were you using for that? Was that some kind of app or tool
PowerPoint.
or PowerPoint? All right. Okay. See, we all learn as we are doing things. This is perfect.
And I didn't design it. I downloaded it. Like,
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This is great. Please, if you can stay for a bit
yep,
longer, there may be questions still coming up in the chat. I know
yep,
sometimes, Jen, you watch the chat, so if somebody wants to ask, I know you will address some of those questions as well. But
sure.
thank you. We really
Yeah, thank you for
appreciate
having
that.
me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to switch to Janet. Janet, yes, I'm so sorry, Janet. Here we go. That's going to be you next. I'm just going to do a bit of technical stuff and make sure that our Janet now is spotlighted. Here we go. All right, so welcome to Janet. Janet is a former project manager at Niagara West Adult Learning Center. I'm going to say upfront, I have had a chance to work with Janet on many different projects, and it's always a pleasure. And I'm always inspired. But I knew a bit from Janet that she was doing the tax clinic at the program, but then there was much more. So, Janet, all yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Monica. And Jennifer, thank you. That sounds like so much fun, and I will be picking your brain about some of that stuff. That great. It sounds like a great program.
To see you again,
Um,
Janet.
yeah, it's good to see you too. All right. So Niagara West Adult Learning Center, when I got there just after COVID, one of the reasons I started one of the reasons Arlene hired me because of the financial background and having taken a financial literacy facilitators program through Prosper Canada and and the fact that I've got like 35 years in banking and tax experience. All right. But because of COVID, one of the first things I did was start looking for funding and looking for ways to do the financial literacy program from Prosper Canada. So for years, every year since I got there, I think I applied to the Trillium Foundation for funding to do a financial literacy program to be able to focus on it. And finally, we got that at the end of 2024, and I had that whole year to focus. So generously funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and very, very grateful to be able to actually spend the time and focus directly on it. Now, next slide, Monica. All right, so I have done the clinic coordination since I got there. I've done volunteer tax returns for between 20 and 25 years. And I've just recently started on the advisory committee for the Niagara Financial Empowerment Network. So that's helping connect all of the different service providers of financial literacy and financial assistance in the practical sense in the Niagara region. And again, as I said, over 30 years in financial services and taxation. Those things, and particularly the financial services, were my motivation for. In all of the time I dealt in banking and tax, more than half of my time was spent educating people one-on-one, helping them to have the information they needed to move forward, but also gaining an understanding of what they didn't know and the misconceptions they had. And sometimes the ways they were misled because somebody wanted a sale. So it was really important to me to make sure people had the information they needed to make good decisions. Okay. All right. So the plan with the funding and building our program, some of this was done at the same time, right? Um, Research and engagement and program development, they were all kind of done concurrently, but the research was an awful lot of reading. So not just reading content of programs that were available, what were they teaching, and always looking for stuff that was free first of all, proven, it stuck, it lasted, and they weren't trying to sell people something because that was a big part of it, right? And it's the way that people kind of get steered off course a lot of the time. Um, but also reading studies. So there's all kinds of studies that have been done on financial literacy and supporting people. Like they do a pilot project and, it lasted a year. And then they brought the results of it, which are really wonderful, but then they didn't keep doing the program, which in one sense is kind of depressing. It speaks to people have a hard time talking about money. But organizations also have a hard time sustaining ongoing funding and ongoing programs in this area. So again, really important, but a lot of really boring reading. Sorry, was very informative, but a little bit exhaustive. but looking at what worked and what didn't work was really important. Engagement was building partnerships. So part of that purpose of that was to build partnerships with financial professionals in the community, with our partner organizations, and with them, we did feedback sessions with different organizations. So an organization in St. Catharines with um, Spanish speaking community, basically finding out what what do you want? What do you need to know? And then picking the top four topics on the list of what they said that they needed and what they'd really like to see. Okay, so then we moved to program development and designing, and for each program we built 5 workshops. The tax workshop was actually a kind of a grandfathered in. I had that in place once a year, and it was a full 2-day workshop. The other ones were to be 2-hour workshops. So 4 separate workshops: budgeting, credit and borrowing, smart shopping, scams and fraud. And I didn't call it budgeting, Jen, but the word budget was on there. And then we moved to marketing and advertising and doing all of that. So most of it was social media campaigns, flyers and posters, word of mouth, and referrals from our partners. And we had a little bit of a budget for local news, which was also, it brought in people for our program. The best place, and I guess I could say that later, is building those partnerships is really, really important. Both for the word of mouth and sharing the information, but also for delivering to their communities. Everybody doesn't have funding for the same thing at the same time necessarily. And being able to deliver to different communities. We did Niagara College, right? We did Links for Greener Learning. And then we did all our smaller sessions right just in Beamsville in the surrounding area. So it was a good way to be able to let our program reach further, right? And to actually meet the requirements of the funding in terms of numbers. It was very helpful. So the piloting, we ran test sessions for partners and at our local community center. We continued to adjust feedback. So, adjust the content. So we gathered feedback on our sessions and kind of gathered how it was being received and adjusted as we went. And the biggest programs we did were in November for Financial Literacy Month, right? We made sure we did two a week for each of the 3 a week for each week of the month of November, and then measured our outcomes. And the goal at the end was sustainability. We had hoped to, and again, it wasn't this, we didn't make a condition of the funding, but we did build it in there that we wanted to buy software and put something online to make it sustainable, and turning it into the Get Set model and into the OAL LCF guidelines. And incidentally, we are still working on that. So next slide. So these are just the basic topics in the workshops. I'm not going to read them to you because they're really long lists, right? But this just gives you an idea of the topics we covered in each of the workshops. Online security was in terms of taxes and kind of right across the board, biggest in filing taxes online and scams and fraud, but we focused on that all the way through, the importance of being safe online, because we have a lot of people who are seniors or a lot of people who deal with challenges with language, and it's important that they know that they're in a secure place. The other thing I was going to say, in those partnerships, we were fortunate to have a Royal Bank manager who came and co-facilitated sessions with us on credit and borrowing. And that added a real, it just really added kind of a formal sense of it, and made it a little more real day to day for the people. Like, they go into the banks all the time. So this person was speaking today's bank's language. I haven't been in an actual bank branch for a lot of years. So that added to the credibility of the sessions and to the expertise in the room. All right. So filing taxes online was really intricate. Budgeting, we called it Your Money, Your Plan, to give them a sense of what they're controlling their spending rather than letting their money control them. And in that one, we addressed those money mindsets, the things that stop people from getting a grip on their finances, the messages we have from childhood, like the money doesn't grow on trees and all those quotes and that kind of they're stuck in our head and sometimes they keep us from moving forward. And we had them think about what their own were, right? What are yours? We showed them tools and apps that they could use for doing things in terms of budgeting. And there's a lot of really good information and really good tools for building budgets and for tracking their expenses. And we did group and individual budgeting activities. Credit and borrowing, we walked through types of lending products, but credit scores, really talking to them about credit scores. How does credit score work? How does it affect you? How can you affect it? How can you change your credit score? How can you improve it? And what your rights and responsibilities are, and also right across the board, where to get help if you have problems. So as a consumer, people don't always know that they have rights. They're intimidated by the language of finance, right? So that if you walk into a bank, you can get, or if you look at an account agreement, you can really get overwhelmed by the legalese and the words that are used, and it's frightening. They'll just shut down and think that they don't have any rights. I will show you in a minute. Actually, Kate, if you ask, I can send you the reference guide for that. And again, for credit and borrowing, where to get help with debt and smart shopping. The biggest part of smart shopping, and people do really love sharing information. They love sharing how they saved money, and they love being able to pass that on to other people. So that was a really fun one. Also used, if any of you took with AlphaPlus the news literacy programs, we pulled one of the videos from of Algo, talking about algorithms and talking about how algorithms and advertising affect people's shopping. How, you search for something and all of a sudden it's popping up in your Facebook feed and it's popping up in your search engine, is popping up everywhere, actually, everywhere you look. So showing them how that was impacting them and just making them aware. And scams and frauds, again, a very hot topic for people, very important, and ongoing changes to that. So very important for people now. And in the feedback, I was very gratified to know, like in 3 of them, 100% they learned something that would help them save money for smart shopping. They found the budgeting and the filing taxes 100% helpful, and they learned what they needed to file their own taxes for taxes. Credit and borrowing, it was, whoops, credit and borrowing, basically the best thing about it was 85% of them were more confident about making decisions about credit after completing it. And they had the resources to find the answers that they needed. Okay, next slide, Monica. Thank you. So our goals were to encourage self-reflection, to look at what they're doing now, look at what information maybe they didn't have, and know that they had rights and know where to look. Build comfort with the terms. In each of our guidebook, the reference guides we provided, there was a glossary of terms. We supported group discussion and learning in all of them. All of them everybody got talking, every session that we did. And we reinforced the learning through activities. And the activities, a lot of them were in the reference guide. And we gave them to take home. They were quite lengthy. And so if we didn't do them in session, they were something that they could take home and continue to research. We wanted to spark curiosity, like we used fun little videos. Credit Unions of Canada have some really good short videos that are just 2, 3 minutes, enough to make it humorous, give you information that you need, and make you want to look further. We shared trusted tools and resources, so had gathered a lot of links, and in the reference guide provided those links for them to go to after. And that included for those budgeting tools, FCAC. A lot of our resources came from the Government of Canada. FCAC has tools like a bank account comparison tool, credit card comparison tool, information about what certain loans are supposed to be like and what your rights and responsibilities are in all of these places. Thank you so much. All right. And building confidence again. So knowing that they have the right to ask questions and that they're going to be better equipped if they're asking. I love that Jen was able to bring somebody in after and kind of walk them through some of this stuff. That's excellent. We do that with our tax programs. Didn't do it as much with this other than right on at the sessions, but that's what we want for them to feel confident in doing that. Next slide, Monica. All right, so in the common features of each workshop, we had a slide deck to guide the conversation. And again, it was just guided, right? The slide would get them going and then we would talk. Self-assessments in the reference guide so they could kind of see where am I now and make notes along the way and have places to look for answers. And at the end or in the middle of some of them, there were tests to say, how good am I at this now? Do I know this, right? And they're not something anybody else is going to see or they're going to get marked in the moment. But it's again sparking the thought and suggesting that maybe there's more they can know and more information that can be had in order to make those decisions that are so important. Give them the confidence to talk about money and a chance to talk about it in a safe place without telling everybody they had their millions under their mattress. The variety of different methods to match the different learning styles, videos, activities, quizzes, and the interactive. The reference guide to take away and continue, and again, links from neutral sources. And next slide, Monica. All right, so the things to consider. I already mentioned it, Prosper Canada's financial literacy facilitator training. I'd taken it before I got there. So highly recommended. In Niagara, there's probably lots of people on here from Niagara, and Workforce Collective was very supportive for our organizations in providing the opportunity to take that program. They were financing it, they were funding the cost of that course, but it's a very good course. I believe it is $160 if you were doing it on your own, but well worth the time. So for myself, even with all the banking experience and tax experience, to bring myself down to a level of I'm not the expert in your finances, you're the expert in your finances, and speaking to people on the same level, letting them know that they're just as capable as I am of making decisions and having the knowledge they need. The partnerships were a big part of it. And again, I've already mentioned how important that was in getting our feedback sessions through, in building training sessions that we delivered at Niagara College and so forth. For the tax workshops, you can, if you want to teach taxes or if you have someone who can, you can get free educational software to do that. Now, school boards would know that, but the smaller organizations are quite capable of doing that as well. You can contact. I used UFile, but I'm sure the other program providers would do the same thing. And what I see, even doing all the research and stuff, is it's helpful to come up with something consistent, no matter how big or small it is, that you're offering on a regular basis, like even if it's just once a year, that you're offering on an ongoing basis so that people see you as a trusted source and they feel safe talking to you, right? That builds a credibility again in the community for being that kind of place where, yes, this is a good program. Yes, it comes back every year. Yes, all of the things. And you can adapt them and build them, make them better as you go too. But it keeps them coming back. Um, Always address the preconceived mindsets about money, potential for money trauma. Next slide. And involve local financial professionals if possible. But if you do so, you kind of have to make sure they're well aware that it's not a selling opportunity. It's not a place that they're going to try and sell your learners. And again, avoid the use of words that trigger fear or money trauma. And if you Google money trauma, there's some really good videos out there about what that might look like, but it's a thing. And avoid coming across as a voice of undisputed authority. It intimidates people. Just be real. And know when to refer them to an appropriate professional. If they start asking questions that are outside your scope, obviously you're gonna tell them, I'm not I am not a financial advisor for, or I'm not, if they start talking about investments or specific stuff about loans or whatever, being able to redirect them to where they can get accurate answers. Okay, and last one, I think, Monica.
That's it. That's the last slide we're on.
Is that the last one? I thought
Yes.
oh,
Is there more?
okay. Oh, I don't
Sorry.
know. That's okay. What I'll do actually is, if you let me, I
Mhm.
will share a couple of screens of my workbooks just to get an idea of, so they can see an idea of what they got sent home with so that they could continue in the
Is that
research.
is that something you mentioned you may be able to share or with others as well? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Yes,
I just okay.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Okay. So I stopped sharing the screen, so you should be able to share.
Okay.
And in the meantime, if there are any questions for Janet, it's interesting to see. I love, Janet, your comment about the authority. Like, you have the expertise, you have done this for a while, but talking to somebody in a common language or understanding specific situations can be very different than, the
Yeah,
person who has worked in that field for so many years, right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and knowing that even if you've worked in that field for so many years, it would be like talking OELCF language to a literacy and basic skills learner. Or using a whole bunch of acronyms, right? You have to be understandable. You just do, right? Okay, so this was one of my guides. This one, which one is this?
So,
I can't
Janet, are you
see
able
because
to
I
zoom
can't.
in a bit? Maybe Control Plus
I
on your
I
screen?
actually I, I
Oh,
actually zoomed out so that you could see a whole page.
okay.
So just so you can see, basically this would be the last couple of pages of one of our guides, and I left them with links to things like Equifax, how to get a copy of your credit report, the FCAC, how to understand your credit report, managing debt, help getting out of debt, and again, always from free sources and tried and true sources. So it would be nonprofit and people who weren't trying to either make money off of them or sell them something. And if, hang on, I'll see if I can make that bigger, this one bigger for you, just so I put them into a link and into a scannable thing for them. So the ones who got it electronically could just click on it.
Wow.
And and that's just the last couple of pages. And there were courses online people could take too to learn more if they wanted to. So a lot of good stuff there. I'm just going to see if I can get at,
And
I
as
can't.
you're searching for things, there's a question: how many workshops did you offer? And on average, how many people attended each workshop?
So the smaller workshops, so when we were doing just for our community, we got anywhere from um, 5 to 8. The bigger workshops and feedback sessions, 15 to 30. We had Niagara College, which was very, very large in terms, I think we had 30 in one class and 20 in another class. So that was a larger group. And in my tax programs are in our office, in our little um computer hub there. And those I won't usually do more than 4 or 5 people for those because it's just me and it's pretty intensive. Okay, can you see a quiz on the screen now?
If you can make it a bit bigger, that would be great too.
Okay. Whoa, that was not what I meant to do. There it is. Okay, so within each of these things that were handed out, there would be it may be awareness quiz or a self-evaluation kind of deal. And your money, your plan. This was the budgeting one. We started that one out, like I said, with the money mindsets and looking at what developed your mindset about money. So why do you think about money the way you do? And where do you find yourself either getting stuck or what has helped you even, right?
Hmm.
These are things that people have heard that sometimes they get stuck on and they impact the way they function with money.
This is great.
And yeah, and our shops smarter. Yeah, a big part at the end of that was information on where to get help with consumer problems because a lot of people don't realize not only that um, they're allowed to complain, right? They're allowed to take things back. We can be such a disposable society, right? But knowing that they have a right to and know there are places that will have their back and that they have rights there and they can find those rights, particularly Canadian Office of Consumer Affairs and the government sites, really good places to go, and also give them the confidence
Wow.
to go back and letting them know that when we do that, we don't just help ourselves, we help our families after us, we help the rest of society, keeping people accountable. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No, we learned a lot, Janet. Thank you. And we had so many questions and comments, and you answered them as we were going. So this is fantastic. But of course, the big one is, would people have access to some of the things you just showed?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. This is amazing. And again, even though, like I always say, like each program or the customer base or the needs can be very different. So being able to pull the ideas, look how you're naming things, how you're organizing it, we're finding and pointing people to. It's amazing that we can kind of pull those together. And then I know, I think it was Jennifer said at first there was no interest in financial literacy, and sometimes people may not understand what that means, or it may be boring, or maybe, the topic is something that people don't want to talk about, right? But when you really open the door, or people are in situations where they need that advice and support, that's when they kind of come and learn from each other. But I think you also mentioned, like Jennifer, that the discussions, conversations were very rich, and people really shared a lot of information and resources. Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much, Janet. The next person coming up is Audrey. And Audrey is the project coordinator at Forthright Learning Services. I'm going to leave it to Audrey to introduce herself and tell you more about what she's doing.
Thank you, Monica. And it's just, I've made tremendous notes from Janet and Jennifer's presentation. So lots of learning for me. Thanks again for inviting me to tell you a little bit about this course that I developed. It's called Me, My Phone, and Money. And I call it a critical financial literacy course, mostly because it uses critical media literacy and critical financial literacy. It's based on the premise of life today is via digital highways and pathways and the busyness of commerce in our virtual lives. And it's sort of the new part, particularly for older adults, and understanding the significance of that and influencing our relationship with money. So I'll just go a little, I'll start with explaining a little bit about what Forthright Learning Services is. My background is I guess it's 25 years specifically in adult literacy work, and then a number of years before that in community-based education. So I've worked with colleges, nonprofits, labor organizations, unions, all around adult literacy, reading and writing, everyday numbers, online communication, built up smartphone skills, projects and programming. And this particular course, Me, My Phone, and Money, was developed in response to a pre-apprenticeship program that was looking for a financial literacy course that didn't want to be just kind of mainstream. This pre-apprenticeship program was for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers training program for women and gender non-binary folks who wanted to become electrician. So they wanted to have a financial literacy program that used a strong equity lens. So that's where that program came from. But as well as developing courses, I have developed a number of courses and workshops for adults and seniors across different environments, whether it's workplace, labor training, employment training, community-based. And then I also have and work with programs to create new projects, all the way from project conception to grant writing to planning to implementation and evaluation. So really, Forthright Learning Services is me. So, but let's get back to the course and we'll go move on to the next one. So it's runs over 4 weeks, and it's a part-time course, and it can be offered online and on site. And it's based on the approach of critical thinking and bringing critical media and financial literacy together. And it's for adults who want to learn how to use their digital devices with confidence, especially increasing their knowledge about financial literacy along with online safety. Folks will learn how social media and, as I'm now calling it, AI persuasive technologies affect the way that we receive information, what we pay attention to, and how we spend our money. Just to take a moment to explain my perspective on critical financial literacy, I draw on the description of critical thinking from a American professor, political activist, and writer, Bell Hooks, who was very much influenced from Paulo Freire, who was sort of the one of the leaders in critical pedagogy, particularly around adult literacy. And I just really like what Bell Hooks said in her book, Teaching Critical Thinking. The heartbeat of critical thinking is the longing to know, to understand how life works. Critical thinking involves first discovering the who, what, where. Who, what, when, where, and how of things, and this is my favorite part, and then utilizing that knowledge in a manner that enables you to determine what matters most. I like to remind myself and us about critical thinking that it really is more knowledge than skill. We can certainly demonstrate our critical thinking by doing a task and showing a level of skill, but it's not a simple transferable skill. And a good way to think about this is with the sort of onslaught of AI tools and technologies. that produces and presents to be able to do decision making and learning. We use the kind of language that is basically what we think humans is, but that type of machinery does not hold knowledge. Humans hold knowledge, just to show the difference. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So over 4 weeks, the class itself is only 90 minutes, but that's really just about half the amount of work. The other half is there's weekly homework. And so there's a fair amount of time that involves correspondence between me and each of the students. That allows for folks to speak openly. As Jennifer and Janet has mentioned, talking about finances is, sort of loaded with all kinds of social norms around judgment and so forth. So having various ways that people can speak and express themselves is really important in this class. So the first class, we really just spend time looking at the wording, right? So looking at the phrase media literacy, what does that mean? Looking at the term financial literacy, what does that mean? And what do you think it means to know that you're safe online, that you're not at risk, or being able to spot scams and being able to spot fake and misleading information? And then I'll introduce the word critical and ask folks in the class to, in their own words, describe what they think that means now that we've brought in the word critical. And that, in many ways, sort of lays the foundation and the tone for the rest of the course to be able to take the time to spend to look at the actual wording that this course is built around. With that, I'll also ask, what do you do on your phone? What do you use it for? From everything, entertainment, daily tasks, wasting time, navigating through the city, all of the reasons that we're on our phone, boredom. And then we get to compare it perhaps to other times in people's lives, perhaps when they were kids. These are usually young folks. In the IBEW pre-apprenticeship program, before they had phones, and what did they do with their time before that? Just to sort of bring in the reality of sort of this digital appendage that we now have connected to us. So I like to start with sort of focusing on kind of building up your critical media literacy. So their homework is to answer a number of open-ended questions. I call it a written response to a selection of documentaries or docudramas such as The Social Dilemma. Another one that folks can watch is Coded Bias. Another one is The Great Hack, and there's a couple of other ones as well. When we come back to the next class, they have to send their homework to me before the next class starts. I compile their responses and start the next class with what they have said, right, in response to watching those films. And that's a good introduction into understanding how the technologies that we have, the digital technology we have, they're actually designed in a particular way, and they're designed according to persuasive technology. And I give a little bit of background on the work since 1980 about the design of persuasive technologies. So, for example, notifications, badges on your phones, sounds, nudges, alerts, any animation on the screen. Those are all design methods to get our attention. Then we move over to talking about money. And as Jennifer and Janet has talked about, the issues around being able to speak openly about money. Their homework is answering some open-ended questions again about what influences you in regards to your spending, and then what kind of conversations with folks in your life have you had about money. We come back, again, I summarize their homework and introduce that as the start of the next class, and I call it the language of money. One of the things I feel is really important when you're using a critical literacy approach is to slow down and pay attention to the significance of the wording. So financial terminology, right? What is gatekeeping? What isn't? Why is it that we don't understand it? Even simple things like credit and debit, right? There's an assumption we all know what those terms are, but being able to spell them out very, very carefully. Um, and then I explain, we do a little exercise on what's called a spending snapshot, and that's a warm up for them doing their homework, and which is for them to do 4 consecutive months of spending snapshot. And when I introduce that, it's like everything that you spend money on, from cash to bank card to credit card to get now, pay later, everything that money is going out to, whether it's all the legal stuff plus the illegal stuff, wherever you're spending money, throw it on this spending. I have a template, but I also encourage them to just use paper, foolscap paper, and start with a list. Start with the details rather than the categories. One of the things I say is when we have a template with categories, like home, right? Groceries, sometimes we can ignore stuff that we spend money on because we don't obviously notice what category it might fit in. So just make the longest list of everything, even if you want to include brand names, list everything. And then you can pull from your detailed list of everything you spent money on and roll them up into categories. And the templates can help you compare that. But start from the detail and end in the broader categories. So that's the third class. And then the fourth class, sorry, my slides are a little bit hidden there down at the bottom. Maybe it's just the way that I'm seeing.
Did I go too
Yeah.
far, or are we
Oh,
good on the right slide? I
oh,
just jumped back.
oh, sorry.
This was the previous?
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay.
So the last class looks at, I call it dollars, debts, and savings. So it looks at credit, the same thing as Janet and Jennifer. Um, Credit scores, credit reports, credit history. We talk a lot about um, interest and the differences in interest and debt consolidation options, looking at the different levels of interest with different kinds of accounts, and then also savings. And then I asked them to do a 4 month budget. And again, using their spending snapshot. So I like to say the spending snapshot is based on recent past, like I asked them to do 4 consecutive months in the last year. And then I asked them to do 4 consecutive months starting pretty much now. The reason why I do this again is designed for the IBEW program. And these folks would be finishing their training and then waiting for their job placement. So how do they manage not having a lot of money during that time? Yeah. Okay, thanks. We can move on. I just wanted to take a minute and just explain a little bit of the difference between, kind of those traditional or mainstream financial literacy programs that maybe have been originally developed and designed even sort of in the 80s. The kind of the core concepts about how people are viewed is that folks are just individual consumers and that financial systems, they're neutral, they don't have any values or any sort of biases. And being sort of a successfully managing your money is being able to kind of fit in and adjust to those systems. Same idea as the economy. There's not really much sort of a critical questioning of why is the economy run the way it is? What do I mean by that? So not really questioning that. And then also people's agency. Again, it's based on sort of that individualistic consumer approach, but a critical financial literacy approach. Um, as Jan and Jennifer has also mentioned, the importance of conveying rights and seeing someone as citizens, and sort of with that assumption that as citizens you have a whole bunch of human rights, and also understanding that you're not alone. You're in the company of many, and so being able to talk about it can actually be quite empowering. And same with financial systems in the economy, being able to understand that why the banking system, why the credit systems, as they have been over time, looking at a little bit of history as I do, and how they're definitely sort of status quo in regards to holding up the dominant society. And then also back to people's agency, that appreciating that how I manage my money is different than how you manage your money, but I have a sense of confidence and comfort in how I do it. So there's not just one shoe fits all. Yep, so we can move on. So how I rolled that all into me, my phone, and money is really sort of using a kind of demystifying approach, right? To break down the language of persuasive technology and the language of finance technology, as well as how the systems run. So looking at sort of uh, how we use our phones, what shows up on our phones, and why is it there, and being able to build your critical literacy and ask critical questions. Same with finances, and then putting it in the context. And I really liked, again, how Jennifer and Janet talked about appreciating the realistic relevance to people's everyday lives. So always putting it in context of what we're sort of living in, and also understanding that it's not just a current issue, paying attention to the present, but we have a history in our money, and our institutions basically are built on sort of a colonial capitalist history, right? So that's why there, when I refer to some laws and some customs that somehow allow it for basically sort of white English speaking, mostly in this part of Canada, have access to loans, other lending options compared to other folks. So being a bit critical inquiry in that. So we'll just move on again. So to be very specific, I think this is also reflective of what Jennifer and Janet has said, that you always start and stay within the learner's everyday context. And one of the things that I find really important is to have a lot of activities where there's some writing, and so people can start with their own words, their own knowledge. That's consistent with the homework, but it's also in different group activities. I'll usually start with beginning with their individual writing, even on terms that they might not know, but best guess. And then they might later refer to their phones, and then we will start to question, is that AI large language model generated, or are you looking at a particular website? Do you know that website is a trustworthy website? So being able to compare your authentic words and knowledge with synthetic text, right? And AI generated information. And so all through the course, I continually incorporate the learner's knowledge into curriculum. So I use their homework responses and put it into slides, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I also think being conscious of the pace and allowing people to take the time to speak in the ways that are comfortable for them. And then again, always facilitating small group and pair activity and pairs activity. So I'm just going to ask Monica if I can maybe share some slides.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
wanted
So
to
we
give
have
you some
it's
examples. Yeah.
perfect. 4:13. We have at least around 10 minutes for you, if that's
Okay.
okay. Then
Oh,
we will
okay.
have the wrap up.
Okay. All
So I'll
right.
stop sharing and then you can share your slides. Lots of great comments. And we also have a group of participants who are using American Sign Language. And we were discussing how, the specific signs, vocabulary, clear language is important to represent some of the context we are learning about when it comes to financial literacy. So this is great how we are learning from each other as we go.
Okay. Sorry, just bear with me for a second here. I'm just going to make this big. Oh, I probably have to do it again. Can you
So right
see
now
my?
we are just seeing your presentation.
Yeah, I knew
Okay,
that was going to happen. So hold on a second.
class
Uh,
two homework.
can you see
Why?
my presentation now? Yes, class 2 homework. You're
Yeah,
good?
yeah. Why do we
Okay.
buy things is one of the things we
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So let me just go back. So, sorry. So in the second class, after we've talked about homework, they basically have to answer the questions and email it to me before the next class. So we talked about persuasive technology and what influences us, doom scrolling, etc., to buy things, or influencers, particularly social media. So I asked them just to think of a time when they made a purchase that they feel really good about, what influenced you about that. And then I asked them to describe a time when they made a purchase that might have been an impulse or bought from peer pressure or from boredom, and what influenced your decision and how do you feel about it? And then a couple of questions about talking about money. It's sort of one is a positive, as you can see, right? So this one is a negative, some difficulty talking about money. What was it about? What emotions did you and the others experience? I don't need details, always respect for people's privacy, particularly in regards to money, but just kind of the impact of it. And then an example of a helpful conversation and why was it helpful?
Hmm.
So then I would start the third class by actually listing, sort of grouping some of the things that they said. Um, and, as we all know, it's very affirming when people see their words up on the board or up on the screen, right? So being able to summarize and bring their words is really important. So these are just what some of the this is what they said, sort of in a rolled up kind of way. Another example is the spending snapshot. So they have instructions in the class of how to do it, but their homework is yes to do it, but to send me not their spending snapshot, but to answer these questions. It's just as important to consider how you did it and what you felt while you were doing it, and not just doing the task. So these questions, is it the first time you've added up expenses? What months did you choose? And then what steps did you take to create the snapshot? That's a really important, literacy skill building, right? To be able to describe in a chronological order, what you did. Were there surprises? Why or why not? And then based on that, are you going to make any changes? Right. And then in class 4, where it's the dollars, debt, and money. There's a little activity. It's an individual activity. This is after talking about credit and interest and debt, saving money. I asked them to write about a time where they were saving money. How old were they? What were they saving for? Or was it just saving? And then where did you put your savings? And then we'll go around the room and people will share. And they're always sort of sweet, um, lovely stories. When I was 7, I saved up to go and, play at the local arcade, or I saved up to, when I was 17, I saved up to buy my first car or whatever it might be. But they're all sort of success, lovely stories. And I asked them to then pause for a moment and refer back to our discussions earlier in the class, which was about debt and about interest, right? And just to think about how they're feeling now, sharing and listening to these lovely stories of saving, compared to the discussions about class. And I also refer this back to persuasive technology. As we know, one of the core methods in marketing is the emotional influence to change behavior and change attitude. So I like to bring emotion straight to the forefront and sit in the front seat. And for us to see that as if we are paying attention to emotions, we're actually practicing critical thinking. So I'll stop sharing now. And yeah, my last slide is just thank you very much and any questions.
We do have a question. So one of the questions is, are learners motivated to do the homework?
Yes, they are. It takes a little prompt. Now, the reason why it's helpful for them, or the reason why they seem to respond to doing the homework is I describe that you can write your homework on a piece of paper, take a photo with your camera, attach it to an email and send it to me. Or if you don't use email, send it to me by text. So their communication, their digital communication method is very easy. So they don't have to write anything. I do also say that if you are going to use a large language model, please just indicate that you have and explain how you used it to answer the question. But I'd rather hear it in your own words, right? So that's an emphasis. Yeah.
And it's amazing because we went with Jennifer, who talked about how it was a lot of conversations and really person-to-person discussions. Janet had bigger outline and also conversations, but bringing in a lot of tools, resources. And you, Audrey, you're bringing in a very different perspective. I think something we are forgetting about, that influence of technology on us, the marketing, the things we see when you go to the store. When you go hungry to the store, you spend much more and you buy stuff because you're just hungry. But there are other influences pushing us or making affecting us in making our decisions. So it's really interesting to see how you're kind of bringing it out to us, even the emotions we are feeling, how we are shopping. You know, when somebody's stressed, they will go shopping sometimes. So all those things we sometimes don't think about or don't talk about, and you're bringing that to the table as well. So that's amazing. That's amazing. I will still see if there's more questions. I can see retail therapy from Brandy as well. Yes, absolutely. But it is driving us back. And you know, the retail therapy a few years ago was different than now with all the inflation and the costs going up. I went to
Mhm.
buy burgers the other day and I almost had a heart attack in a store. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did it go up so much? So it's crazy. It's crazy how things are affecting us. And the discussions about financial literacy, it's different in our field because sometimes we focus more on reading, writing, and other things, math as well. But this is an aspect that sometimes is very important for someone coming into the program and trying to, continue their education, be independent, and so on. And then we need to bring it forward as well. So I want to thank you all for participating and to our guests for taking the time to come and share how you're approaching it and what you're doing with financial literacy in your programs and beyond as well. So for all of you, just to kind of highlight as well, we will share all the resources, whatever the links and information the participants or the guests will be willing to share. I will put that into our slides, or at least into the website we have, so you'll be able to access as much as possible from this. The recording will be processed within a few days, but we want to make sure that you will have access to all this information. But before we wrap up for today, I just really want to tell you about other things coming up, because many of us come up and share information as we continue, and showcases are something that we do on ongoing basis. So we do have two more coming up. I have to admit the topics are still working topics, but really usually now once a year we talk about AI. So on September 29th, we will going back to NI and checking with the programs and sharing some of the interesting things they have been doing, developing, trying. But there will be more information coming soon. But if you want to register, just so you have the system book you, so it will send you reminders. It will be on September 29th, and there's a hyperlink you will be able to click on, and that will take you to the registration page. The other one will be looking at accessibility. It's a new topic for us as well, but it comes up a lot. And different programs, different organizations approach it differently. There are different needs, different tools that we are discussing. So that's something we want to address in one of our showcases as well. But I also want to mention that we have PD workshop, professional development workshops coming up, resources and tools to support creative writing instruction. That will be Tracy and Guylaine. So if you have any questions, Tracy is here as well. If you can ask her questions. But we want to make sure that it's coming up starting, I believe, next week, next Wednesday, I believe. So there's still time to register or ask questions. And then we will be taking a bit of pause for the summer with many other things. But Alan talks about cybersecurity. So we do organize on-demand workshops around cybersecurity. So if that's something you may want to explore with your team, maybe even during the summer months, sometimes it's easier and more helpful. You can reach out to Alan as well and ask him any questions you have around that. And on that note, I'm going to thank you all for participating, for joining us, for asking the questions. There's 18 new, so we'll have to take a moment to just review them. But in the meantime, also in our slides, and Tracy is posting this information as well, the feedback. So as you know, we rely on your feedback to be able to do the sessions, to learn from you, to understand what you need going forward. So we really appreciate if you will take the time to provide your feedback from the session today. And as many of you may know, but if it's your first time, all of the recordings from our sessions. So for each session, we create a page with the slides, with the recording, with the resources mentioned during the discussion, sometimes even questions. So we will try to bring all that into that resource page for you. So we have all of those on our website in the resource library. So you'll be able to find them there. In the meantime, if you give me a few seconds just to review the chat, any other comments or notes from our guest participants? Anything that stood out for you from the other guests or from the questions that were raised today? Please feel free to just chime in.
Just jumping in
Yeah.
quickly, but with the economy the way it is now and prices the way they are, I, I think there's a good possibility that there will be a lot of opportunities for funding if you're willing to jump in and do it. And it is so important. So I look forward to hearing from some of you for the next financial literacy workshop.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are I'm hearing from other programs that they're building or they're trying to find resources. So I think this was very timely with you kindly sharing what you have done and also agreeing to share some of the resources with the guests as well, because it is important to everyone to kind of learn from each other, right? To build. And then as conversations come up, some other needs also will be raised. Like that, my example with the minors and the need to improve their financial literacy, it's no, it's something that's so necessary and essential in their case, but sometimes it gets forgotten or omitted. So all those resources, amazing, amazing. Okay, everybody's looking forward to the resources and information. Just checking if there's any more questions. No, I think we are good. Awesome. I'm really glad that everybody who is joining in, discussing excellent, great workshop. Thank you again to our guests. We do have 1 or 2 minutes. I can stay behind if you would like, if there is anything else. But otherwise, I want to thank you. I know you're busy with your schedule, so maybe want to sign off, and then we will be following up with the resources in the next few days. All right. Thank you, everyone. You see me smiling because I'm so excited. And I remember when we were chatting about this. So Jennifer, Janet, and Audrey, we kind of met before the session to kind of plan what we will talk about. And I was so amazed with the wealth of information, but also the different angles and how that potentially simple conversation about financial literacy or budgeting or bills or something can makes change somebody's life, basically change somebody's life, right? Yeah. Jennifer's example with the 300% interest rate, I think it was Jennifer who mentioned that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's also mind-boggling, right? And we sometimes don't think about that, don't realize or miscalculate or don't understand how it gets calculated.
I couldn't believe it. Like I that would never happen to me. So I didn't think it was so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things in our credit protect presentation is talking about predatory lending
Mm,
because it is so easy to fall into, right? When funds are tight for people.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. But also, and it's a personal thing I will mention is that when you deal with some loss in the family, how that influences the finances, not only from the perspective, some the income may not be coming in, but also understanding what kind of bank account do you have? What will happen with your account if you are not there anymore? All those questions and conversations are important as well, but often omitted and not even discussed at all.
We had a participant who was still sharing a bank account with the previous partner. And so any of the HST and that kind of thing getting deposited in the account, the ex was able to withdraw that. And when we made the list for a conversation with the bank, it wasn't that account was originally in the participant's name and they added the partner to the account, but it wasn't so simple to now remove that partner. You needed
Hmm.
the partner's permission
Oh, wow.
to
Yeah.
so that they could close the joint
Yeah.
account because it now like I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we forget, we don't notice, we don't realize sometimes. So any of those conversations and I think Jennifer, your example with that idea that people would want to continue is because you're learning all kinds of different things depending on the situations you're in. Yeah.
Yeah, with more funding, I would have extended the one-on-one part
Hmm.
because uh, these things take so much time to get resolved.
Yeah, definitely.
When we were getting feedback on what people wanted, we actually, like some of the topics we had were wills and powers of attorney,
Yeah.
general banking rules, because they're so big, you couldn't, to fit them in, because these were already 2 hours just on
Yeah.
one topic, right? They're big, and you want to make sure that you take the time to allow them to interact with the information and communicate it in a understandable way, right?
I've
Like,
got some grant applications out right now to take some components of this and make them just modules so people could attend just
Hmm.
a module here and there that they would want. The online apps, it was of particular interest, so we really needed to spend way more time on that.
Wow, definitely.
Sorry to
Definitely.
interrupt,
Yeah.
Monica. Just from the
Yes.
interpreting team, we actually do have to
Yes, absolutely. We are
carry
wrapping
on
up.
with other appointments.
Perfect.
Thanks.
thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you, Dean and Jason. Really appreciate all your support.
Thanks for
Thanks a
having
lot.
us. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. We are going to wrap up for today, but feel free to reach out to any of us. Me, I can always forward the information to the guests. And thank you to all of our guests. You have been amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Monica,
invite.
I
Thank
did
you for
share
having
that
us.
spreadsheet with you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will
I
include that.
I
Yeah.
want it, Jennifer.
I'm gonna let Monica send it out.
Yeah,
She's much more of the Google guru than I am. So I've shared it with her. Hopefully you can put it onto an Alpha Plus site where you can share it from there.
sounds good. Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly what we're going to do.
It's called Making Decisions.
Amazing.
Okay.
Awesome. Perfect.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank
Thank
you for the
you.
opportunity. Good to
Enjoy
see
the rest of
everybody.
the day.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Nice to see
much.
you
Thanks.
guys.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
all.
Bye.